Hey guys, this is Josh here with Trillium Wild Edibles, and today I want to do an identification video on a little known plant known as trout lily. This plant is very little known. It's not very well known in the foraging community, unfortunately. This plant is extremely delicious. It's also extremely easy to identify, and it's one of the earliest wild edibles that we have in the eastern woodlands of the United States of America. So if you want to join me on this video, make sure to stay tuned because we've got a lot of good information coming up. Trout lily is an extremely easy plant to identify. As we walk through the woods, especially moist woods in the early spring, one thing we're going to notice is these lanceolate or ovate shaped leaves coming up through the soil. These leaves are going to have a bunch of purple spots, or what's known as mottled spots, growing up along the leaf. This happens because the trout lily is really good at concentrating phosphorus within its leaves, which is what causes those purple or brownish spots. The edges or the margins of the leaf are going to be smooth. There's not going to be any teeth. There's not going to be any lobes. They're very simple. They're ovate or lanceolate in shape. Very easy to identify by the leaves. However, there are various species of trout lily. If we take a closer look at the trout lily leaf, especially at the underside, if we look at the underside of the leaves, we're not going to notice any spots. This is very common on the yellow-flowered variety or Erythronium americanum. However, if we look at the front side, we're going to notice all of these little mottled spots, all these little reddish-brown spots on the top side of the leaf. If we flip it over, we notice no spots on the underside of the leaf. This is how we can tell the difference between the yellow-flowered variety and the white-flowered variety of trout lily or Erythronium. We can notice whenever we look at these leaves that they're very long, they're very elongated, they're also simple. These are a basal plant, meaning that the leaves are on the base of the plant itself. They're not growing up along a stalk of any kind, they are right up on the ground. So as you're walking through the woods in early spring, pay attention because you're going to see a whole lot of these leaves growing up out of the ground. A really good example of that is if we look right here in front of us, we can see these singular basal leaves coming up out of the ground. We also see some of the early leaves of sanicle right on the tip of my finger. And we also see some spring beauties coming up there. We can see a spring beauty flower right there. This is very indicative of the habitat or environment that trout lily and spring beauty and toothwort and sanicle really love to grow. They really love moist woodlands. So when you're in a moist woodland environment, make sure you keep your eyes open for these leaves. However, you might be wondering, what do the flowers of these plants look like? Well, let's take a look at the flower of the trout lily. Now, from a distance, we can see these very nodding shape or these bell-shaped flowers. They're also yellow in color because this is Erythronium americanum. There are several other species of trout lily. There are about 15 species across the United States, to my knowledge. However, the one that I most normally find is the yellow-flowered variety. They're all perfectly edible. There is nothing wrong with any one of these species. However, the glacier lily, which is, to my knowledge, a white-flowered variety, also has the largest bulbs. And that's the part you want to use for food. But you can't use it for food if you don't know how to identify it. So let's take a closer look at this plant in front of us and see what it looks like. As we look a little bit closer here, we can actually see that there are two different trout lilies growing right here along the base of this tree. We can note the nodding shape of these flowers, how they're shaped about like that. They're generally drooping, and the reason that these petals aren't fully opened, because what happens in the sun is these petals will open up and they will curl backwards in the sun. However, in the shade, they have a more bell-like shape to them. These flowers are very characteristic of a lot of various lily species, except for the fact that these generally grow in the woods instead of in your garden like a lot of other ornamental varieties of lily. If we look at the leaves of the plant that's flowering, we're going to notice how long they generally are. By the time the plant or trout lily comes to flower, we're going to notice its leaves being about 6 to 7 inches in length and about 1.5 inches in width. This is very indicative of this species, and usually in the early season, like the plants we saw a second ago, they're going to be very, very small. Once the plant starts to flower, it's going to gain leaves that are very, very large. Like I said earlier, this plant really loves moist environments. It really loves moist habitats. One thing that I've noticed is that south-facing hillsides usually have the earliest blooming plants as far as trout lilies and spring beauties, and they also bloom the earliest mushrooms or morels. South-facing hillsides, because they get more sun in the day coming from this direction. Right now we're looking west. This hillside slopes off to the south, so it receives a lot of run and drain off, or a lot of drainage and runoff coming through down this direction after it rains. This provides a lot of moisture for the trout lilies to bloom a lot earlier than the ones that might be further up the hill that direction. This trout lily in front of us is a prime example of that because the water is coming down this hill towards the south. The sun is coming in generally from the south this direction, and all this water and moisture is collecting right here on the base of this tree, allowing these trout lilies to flower a lot earlier than the other trout lilies within the area. So this is an extremely easy plant to identify, especially if you get out early in the spring, because if you want to get out early in the spring, you want to find the places that you're going to see all of these moisture-loving plants. Main reason because those are the ones that are edible the earliest time of the year. However, if we look off to the left side of us, further towards the south, we're going to notice all of these little bitty shoots coming up. These are the shoots of Solomon seal. This is one of the many species of Solomon seal, and this is a habitat plant that is common as a companion with trout lilies, toothworts, spring beauties, Solomon seals, jack-in-the-pulpits, and other moisture-loving species of wild edibles that you can find in the spring. The shoots of this plant are edible, as are the roots. However, I have not tried the shoots at all in my experience, so I do not know how those taste. But it is another plant to keep in mind, and it is a companion plant to the trout lily that we can see right here in front of us. So I thank all of you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. If you want to learn more about wild edibles or medicinal plants, please make sure to subscribe. Also, if you really like this video, share it and also click like. It really does help out the channel. I thank all of you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.